All right, have a good show, bro.
Yeah, man. Hold on for a minute. Let me get right for a minute, man. Checking my Facebook page.
Purchase your tracks today.
And my Instagram page. And my Snapchat page. We'll get it back.
See you flossing on Instagram, stay posted on Facebook. It's the I See What You're Doing podcast. I'm Mr. I See What You're Doing, and as always, I see what you're doing.
And as always, I see what you're doing. Man, a lot to go into before tonight begins. Imagine building a life, a business, a future for your children, only to watch it disappear overnight. Not because of a natural disaster, but because your success was seen as something dangerous. Tonight is not easy history. It's the history that demands to be remembered. So, okay. Fashion seatbelt. It's going to sound like a lot of craziness. It's going to sound like a lot of madness. But I wanted to do this episode because we're in Black History Month. And I mean, like I said last week, we are going to try to preserve all of American history and not just the good parts or the parts that make America look good. You feel me? Because historically, documentation has given what I would call a historical black eye to Germany, England, Japan, China, Russia, Ukraine, wherever you at. You know what I mean? There's some kind of struggle or some kind of war going on, right? There's a war going inside of us each and every day. But with that being said, I want to point out some significant moments in history that pertain to why history is wanting to be changed in America, because I can only speak about where I'm at. And for it to be changed, that you want to knock down the woke theories, or you want to knock down take away certain parts of history because they make a certain demographic or a certain race of people feel uncomfortable. It's just asinine and outrageous. But that's what we see in the world today. So what we gonna do, man, is we gonna get right into that. You know, we're gonna get right into it. So here we go. I want to start off by saying nations are often divided by what they celebrate, or not often defined by what they celebrate. But just as revealing is what they struggle to confront. Because history rarely disappears. Sometimes it's simply buried, and that's the thing that they're trying to do now: bury American history, and they put a label on it: Black history, African American history, things like that. But you have to talk about the people who participated in those historic moments, and you can't erase half, just like you can't erase a penny. Hold on, bro, it's gonna get rough. But because you can't erase a penny. But that's what they want to get rid of. Have you not known that you went in the stores now and they getting rid of a penny? Getting rid of the penny. The penny was brown compared to all the other coins. And it turned in the opposite direction. And I know exactly what that meant. That meant that the Abraham Lincoln was being portrayed as the individual who had turned his back on the American people at that time by abolishing slavery. Tonight, we step into the chapters of American history that reshape communities, redirect the generation, not to dwell in the past, but to better understand the road that has brought us here. So let's begin in Tulsa, Oklahoma. In the early 20th century, in the Greenwood district of Tulsa, Oklahoma, stood one of the most prosperous Black communities in the United States. But during segregation, Greenwood became a powerful example of economic self-determination. Black doctors treated patients in modern offices, attorneys represented clients in thriving practices, and entrepreneurs operated grocery stores, hotels, theaters, barbershops, and newspapers. Money circulated in the communities, allowing families to buy homes, educate children, and imagine futures shaped by stability rather than survival. Visitors often describe Greenwood as alive and with activity. Storefronts and late storefronts lit late into the night. You out there, excuse me, I got a lot going on. When I get ready to do these type of things, this is the thing that happens. I get phone calls, I get emails, I get text messages, shit, from numbers I don't even know. So it keeps me motivated to keep me doing this type of shit right here. Storefronts lit late into the night. Streets were busy in a district that proved Black economic success could exist even under restricted laws. It earned the name Black Wall Street. Let's just pause right there because I'm rolling through and I'm going to get through this episode one way or another. So what you have is the idea at that particular time. Let's just give you the 1921. So we talk about 1921. You have a separate but equal situation going on, right? We separate but we equal. We fall up under economic problems where all of the money in America is being distributed, but somebody's getting the short end of the stick. And then Tulsa comes along and creates its own economic system. How do you do that? By circulating the money. And we've all heard this before. The black dollar or white dollar, a dollar doesn't stay in these neighborhoods in the modern day because people of color don't own a lot of the establishments like grocery stores or clothing stores, anything like that. The mom and pop shops have all been erased. So what you have in 1921 is a group of Black people went and formed their own city and their own economic prowess inside of that city in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Things were thriving. As I told you before, they created their own economic foundation in that particular city. Right? Yet prosperity exists inside a national climate marked by post-World War anxiety, heightened racial tension, and a deep fear of shifting social order. On May 31st, 1921, an allegation of a young Black man and a white elevator operator ignited rumors that spread quickly. Newspaper coverage intensified outrage. Crowds gathered at the courthouse. What began as tension escalated into a confrontation. Then looted, homes burned, residents detained, and entire blocks reduced to ash. Eyewitness accounts describe aircraft overhead. Details that, whether interpreted as surveillance or something more, reinforced the scale of what was unfolding. When order returned, more than 30 blocks were destroyed. Thousands were homeless, and historians estimated that many as 300 people had been killed, though the true number remains uncertain. For decades, the event was minimalized in official memory, leaving survivors to reveal in the shadows and in silence. So what we have here is another situation where I don't like it. We already know that predominantly white dominated area. You have Black order, you have whites only restaurants and all those type of things. But here's a city that is thriving with Black excellence, right? And if we go through history, and I'm going to show you the pattern in these particular segments I have here. But the pattern is an allegation was made that was incorrect, which caused a racial war. This is what the outcome was: an economically sound city, predominantly white Black people, being doctors, lawyers, and buying homes and thriving educationally wise, economically wise. and physicality wise, has now been destroyed over an allegation. No proof, just word and reaction, right? Why does this happen? Tulsa was fueled by a convergence of economic resentment towards visible Black wealth, a fear of changing social power in a segregated society, inflammatory media narratives that accelerated mob energy, and weak or complicit civic protection where the system failed to stop escalation. So nobody stepped in because most of the people who were going to be affected by this were of the opposite, or not fans of Black people prosper. This is the history that you have. Prosperity does not guarantee safety when tension goes unresolved, meaning just because it's a prosperous city doesn't mean that those type of negative things that happen in Tulsa would not happen unless you have sound-minded, logical thinkers that say we can't let this happen. Because I mean, at the end of the day, whether that money prospered inside a Black neighborhood, eventually everyone in the country benefits from it, just like you benefit from the trillions of dollars that Black people spend economically. Now it's the same thing. So that's where we're looking at. And then 2 years later, another community would disappear. And this one here kind of touches your heart, touches you closely. And it gets close to my heart because I saw the movie. And the movie I'm talking about is Rosewood. And the entire eradication and erasing of an entire community. Come go with me down south. As I tell you, Rosewood, Florida was a small Gulf Coast town built in the decades following the Civil War by formerly enslaved families determined to claim something. B, what up, B? B said, speaking of money, did you see where the SSI is now going to be called the Federal Refund System? I didn't see that. I didn't see that, B, but Brian wants us to know that they changing the name of SSI, from which kind of ties into Trump accounts. So I don't know what's going on right now, bro. But let's keep an eye on it though. You feel me? Appreciate you, B. So Rosewood was built and established by formerly enslaved people who wanted to claim something that they had been denied for a long time. Stability. Plus those 40 acres and a mule, but I mean, hey, we can't get 40 acres and a mule for everybody. We'll take 50 or whatever the case may be. Surrounded by dense pine forest and quiet waterways, the town developed into a self-sufficient community where land ownership represented not only economic footing, but dignity. Families farmed their property, children attended the local schoolhouse, and churches stood as both spiritual centers and gathering places where neighbors reinforced bonds shaped by shared perseverance. Now stop right here. Considering the move and doing the research, this was not the same. This was similar to Tulsa, but it wasn't just like Tulsa. And when I say that, it's because this is after the Civil War, and families, not just Black families, but families displaced by the Civil War that wanted to have a piece of the American dream live together. And regardless of what the issue was, racial or anything, and I'm going to keep going into it. But something happens that changes the narrative. And regardless of whether we want to believe it or not, it's always the same play every time it gets ran. And that play is somebody makes an accusation. The response is overly exaggerated. People lose their lives. And then it kind of just people tend to try to forget it or erase it. So life in Rosewood was neither wealthy nor widely known, but it carried something equally powerful. Continuity is what it carried. Generations were beginning to imagine futures less defined by survival and more by possibility, the possibility of having the American dream. So that means that, listen, we're not in slavery anymore. Probably a sharecropper's town or something like that. But Black people have a vision of how life is supposed to go. White people have a vision of how life is supposed to go. Immigrants have a life. We're here to collect the American dream. The security was fragile, and it was a rigid racial structure. And remember, this is in the South. This is in the early 20th century in the South, where down South, contrast to up north, New York and around those areas, it always has been racial tension here in the South. I remember I said the accusation in the South, Emmett Till's, and those type of incidents happen. Those particular incidents were going to be met with those particular accusations were going to be met with consequences. Some of them, grab them, hang them on the tree type shit. You get it? Take them and hang them on the tree. Hang them on a tree. So in January of 1923, that fragile environment was exposed after a white woman in the nearby town of Sumner County. So you can almost see Sumner County. And if you get on the map and find Sumner County, nearby town, Rosewood, reported that she had been assaulted. Speculations spread rapidly across the region. Details were inconsistent, evidence uncertain, but rumor rarely waits for verification. Stories grew with each retelling, and suspicion hardened into assumption. So armed posses formed quickly. Some arrived from neighborhoods and communities not in Sumner. Not in Rosewood. They came from other places. Because this is going to be one of them good old-fashioned holdouts. You feel me? They came unified. And they came with a determination without having facts to respond to the attack, the alleged attack of a white. Let's just pause right here. If you saw the movie, you know what the allegation was. I saw the movie, and when they portrayed it in the movie, it was that the young white woman said that a black man had raped her. The movie portrayed it as her having an affair, and then her husband catching her. The sex got physical more than what they wanted to be, and she was bruised, and she had to portray rape. So she blamed the African American man. With that, they went over town to town saying that the young lady was raped by African American men, and that's when the massacre started. Gunfire broke out. Broke the Stillness Zone railroads. Homes were set on fire. Families fled into surrounding forests and swamplands, navigating unfamiliar terrain in darkness, hiding for days with little food or protection. Survivors would later recall parents urging children to remain silent, not out of discipline, but out of fear that even a whisper could reveal where they were. So, man, in a nutshell, man, I could close the roll with like this. Accusation was had. The white people in those towns gathered their guns and started hanging people, lynching people, and killing people over accusation that was not backed by factual information. It was just because it was said that way. It was another opportunity to destroy something and destroy that land so that they can take over the lands. I guess at that particular point, you can kind of call me out for speculating or making the false accusation, but shit. All the immigrants in the country, in America, all the descendants of the immigrants, hold your hands up. I don't even see, but I mean, I'm sure that more than 50% of the people in this country should have their hands up right now, right? And when the country was first invaded, I say, because there wasn't no deal with the Indians. Those Indians that had that Thanksgiving with those pilgrims were enslaved just as well as the black people that the Africans that they brought over from Africa. But anyway, by the time the violence subsided in Rosewood was not merely damaged; it was effectively erased. Houses were gone, stores were gone. Residents disappeared across Florida and beyond because they were running away from the tragedy, often leaving behind land they could never reclaim. And there's still a fight in the court system right now where people are trying to reclaim their land on behalf of their ancestors in Rosewood. And there's a few people that are still alive from that particular era. And you have to hear some of the stories that get told on how they did survive, you know. Many chose silence in the years that followed, carrying memories privately rather than risking the vulnerability that public recollection might demand. So when you think about it, imagine when you think of that you have to carry that type of weight on your shoulders for so long, and you never get a chance to tell those stories, and you never get that land that your ancestors had back, you know, or living in that area and watching your family members, loved ones die, and you know that the truth is never going to be told. That should affect you, but I mean, hey, what are we doing right now? No. For decades, that town was largely absent from record books, textbooks, and public conversation, as though it had disappeared or had been absorbed into the landscape itself. It wasn't until the late 20s that formal acknowledgement emerged, often recognition, long delayed, but unable to be restored. And they were unable to restore what had been lost. Rosewood stands today less as a physical place, more of a reminder of how quickly communities can unravel when fear overtakes resistance. So why it happened, Rosewood reflected a volatility of a social order where hierarchy was closely guarded, rigid racial codes that elevated accusations above due process, vigilante enforcement operating outside of formal law, minimal protective intervention from authorities, and a climate where intimidation functioned as social control. Again, stability cannot vanish overnight. When rumor is allowed to outrun justice. So here's the thing as we continue to move on into as we continue to move forward in this. As you see the first two stories I gave, where you would think that the authorities would step in, the authorities were okay with it at that particular time. The police, the sheriffs, or whatever, they were okay with this type of stuff happening. You feel me? It was vigilante justice. It was vigilante justice. This is the things that you walk into where you don't get a chance, where you walk into and you don't realize that a leopard never changes its stripes. Mind you, now, I don't want anyone out there to think that I'm just talking to be a negative person about it, you know. Do I think some people can change? Maybe. Do I think everybody wants to change? I don't. Why do I know that? Because I look at America right now with the president that we have now, and I believe that there's more tension being stirred up than positivity. Feel me? There's more. There's no unification. There's no United States of America. It looks more like separation. You know. And then Tulsa was not isolated, and Rosewood was not alone. Let's widen the lens a little bit and go into another city. The Colfax massacre. This shows the political power and fragility of rights after the Civil War. This proves that the pattern predates the 1900s. If you can see me, man, I'm trying to keep it where you can see me. Okay. Because I got, okay. So, the Colfax, and mind you, all of these were, all of this is American history. All of these particular events happened in American history, not Black history, American history. It just happened to Black people. So sometimes you gotta get your hands a little dirty, but this happened to Black people, and these are the things that they want to erase. These particular memories. But I'm here for you, man. I ain't gonna let you forget. I'm just that type of person. I believe that if you gonna remember any of it, then you should remember all of it. If you're gonna celebrate any of it, then you should celebrate all of it. Take the good with the bad. Take the good with the bad, the ups and the downs. Take it on the chin. You know what I'm saying? Roll with the punches. Let's roll. Colfax massacre unfolded during Reconstruction, one of the most uncertain and transformative periods in American history. The Civil War had ended only years earlier, and the nation was attempting something unprecedented, redefining citizenship for millions who had previously been denied it. Newly freed Black Americans were voting, holding office, serving on juries, and participating in civic life in ways that signal a profound shift in the democratic experiment. It's crazy for someone to say an experiment, a democratic experiment, a democracy experiment. Are we still in that experiment? Are we still being experimented on? Are we still in the lab being tested to see if democracy really works? Is that the reason why now there's a push to shut down and stop democracy, change democracy, let voting rights and elections be monitored and controlled by the federal government instead of local governments? Is that what that push is for? Because the experiment is almost over? Let that sink in for a minute. I'll be right with you. So, for many, it was a moment filled with cautious hope. Like, we cautious. We hope it work out. But consider where we just come from as Black people. It could be some kind of trick. They could be setting us up. You feel me? That's where you have to distrust that now, because if you go back and see the history, and I just wanted to point this out, if you erase the history now, future generations can fall back into calamity because there's a reset. That's the push to get rid of portions of history that make that point out negativity and point out hatred and racism and all those type of things. You feel me? Now, I want to be clear. I didn't write the history books, and I don't know at a time when Black people couldn't learn how to read or write, whether it was possible for anyone of color to write a history book. Yeah, history existed. And now you're ashamed of the history that you wrote down in the history books. Hang tight, man. We're not done yet. I'm just getting started. This Colfax massacre happened in Grant Parish, Louisiana. That tension was crystallized around a contested gubernatorial election. So now we got people, they gonna burn out they gonna have a massacre because the elections didn't go their way. Sounds like insurrection activity. Shit. They playing the same fucking record over and over again. They playing the same play over and over again. It's the same fucking move over and over again. But let's continue, because that's just sticking in my mind. Competing political factions each claim legitimacy, creating an atmosphere charged with suspicion. Suspicion. Damn, sound like some January 6th shit. Black citizens, many of them veterans of the Union cause or descendants of those who had endured enslavement, gathered at the local courthouse to support officials they believe had been lawfully affected. Their presence was more than procedural. It symbolized a determination to defend participation in the system that had only opened its doors to them. Shit, it might be time for another Million Man March, man. Somebody hit my inbox. We can do it. Put it together. Let's go to Atlanta this time. I say, fellas, 1 million men. Let's meet up in Atlanta, man. Stay tuned. We'll come up with a date. I think it's about time for another Million Man March. But on Easter Sunday in 1873, heavily armed white paramilitary groups advanced towards Colfax. With deliberate coordination, what followed was not a brief clash, but hours of escalating confrontation as gunfire echoed across the parish. The courthouse eventually caught fire. Smoke rose into Louisiana skies as a visual marker of how fragile that moment had become. When defenders attempted to flee or surrender, numerous accounts suggest that violence did not immediately cease. Instead, killings continued, transforming conflict into massacres. While exact figures remain debated, historians broadly agree that dozens and likely more than 100 Black men were killed, making it among the deadliest episodes of the Reconstruction era. Now, this is after slavery. We free now. Abraham Lincoln had been put on the brown penny. They didn't literally stated that he turned his back on his people. In the aftermath, federal authorities pursued prosecution that initially appeared to affirm the government's commitment to protecting civil rights. Yet that promise narrowed dramatically when the Supreme Court ruled in United States versus Cruikshank that federal power to prosecute such violations was limited. The decision weakened immensely and weakened enforcement of the 14th Amendment and signaled that constitutional protections might not always translate into practical security. Damn, this shit sounds so familiar. It sounds like I'm an American citizen. It sounds like I'm an American citizen. Who is this? History was written by those, at Nicole Taylor said history was written by those who could read and write, but could not be told or published. I got you. I feel you. So here, it sounds like I'm an American citizen and ICE can grab me and deport me to another country. Kind of sound like that, like my constitutional rights don't protect me, you know, and now I can be sent to another country because someone's saying that I'm an illegal immigrant, even after I show proof that I'm an American citizen. You signed a bill that said that Black people were free, and we still don't, till this day, have the same rights and privileges afforded to other races. The same people that helped build this country, and you can say that proudly, but you can't give the recognition and the rights and afford opportunities to the same people that built this country. That happens today. We have not changed yet. Okay. Colfax became more than a local tragedy. It became a national indicator, revealing that the architecture of democracy was still under construction, and that without sustained protection, its foundations could fracture. Which brings us to today. You can see the fractures in the foundation of democracy today because when you have a president that says, I'm going to run for president for a third term. And I don't know whether that can happen or not, but yeah. I know it can't happen or not. Let me clarify. I know it can't happen, but who am I, right? Let's move it right along. Colfax emerged from a nation struggling to reconcile equality with entrenched hierarchy. Resistance to Black political participation, organized paramilitary efforts to reclaim authority, disputed governments fueling confrontation, and limited federal enforcement capacity. And again, we go back to limited protection and enforcement of the constitutional rights. My thought is rights secured and law remain vulnerable without the will to defend them. So if there's not a major push to defend those rights of all the people, then those rights are not really rights, right? Because those people who take a vow and swear on the Constitution swear to uphold the rights of the Constitution. What happened to liberty and justice for all? What happened to we the people by the people? Unless you're ever going to come out and be honest and say that was not necessarily, we were not necessarily talking about them. We know that we weren't necessarily talking about y'all. We know that because the Constitution was written and it didn't have Black people in mind. And then amendments came, but the original Constitution was not written with slaves in mind. And at the time of the Constitution being written, do I need to say more? Don't worry about it. Let's go into Wilmington coup of 19 of 8 of 8 wow 1898. This this segment's purpose was to raise the stakes. Not only were people attacked, governments themselves were overthrown. Shit. I think I caught the January 6th. It's got tones of January 6th insurrection all over it. This particular outline, this particular podcast got tones of the January 6th insurrections. And I mean, shit, is this what people are practicing now? Is these the politics that we practice now? Are these the things that we're doing under the cloak of being them being political moves? Damn. Wow. Hey, listen, you have to excuse me because when I wrote this, I was like, yeah, I'm finna be with the shenanigans. Because we all know if you're a shenan once, you're a shenanigan. I stay with the shenanigans. I was under the impression that I was going to be giving you guys information. And I mean, I'm so excited because I'm learning right now as I speak to you with this particular message and this outline. I can almost track down. I'm tapping into the similarities between those historical dates and what's happening right now. And I mean, there's nothing new under the sun. It's just the same game being played on repeat. Man. And we can't see it yet. It just seems like something new. And that's the reason why that's the reason why you want to erase the history, because the history and the plays are not seen in the great parts of American history. The plays and the things that you should be looking out for of what could happen are seen in the parts that the government wants to erase. Now let's go. By the closing years of the 19th century, Wilmington, North Carolina had grown into a dynamic port city where commerce flowed through busy docks and civic life. And it reflected an uncommon degree of political diversity for the era. Black professionals served in public office, owned businesses, and contributed to a local economy that suggested the possibility. However, fragile, a multiracial government in the post Reconstruction South was not going to be allowed. To some observers, Wilmington represented progress. I mean, and that's what you want to see, right? You want to see people come together and grow. And you want to see people come together and change the narrative. You want to trust that at some point in the world, after Reconstruction, that there will be some kind of utopian situation. Maybe not all the way, but the tension and the anger and the hatred and everything would die down. You feel me? Tied into Martin Luther King's dream, but this is 1898, so we haven't gotten to the dream yet at this particular point. But still, all God's children, black men, white men, whatever, can sing in the Negro spiritual free at last. I'm ad-libbing that because it's a little bit long, but I mean, in a nutshell, the idea is for us to be able to get past the negativity and come to a place where we can all let the bygones be bygones and move forward to creating a better place, a safer place, and a better world and a better country for our kids. But that's not what's happening. You feel me? it kind of feels like there's points still to be proven. Somebody's still trying to make a point. And if that's the case, then we've all been lying. If we have a desire to leave this earth better than we found it, or to make a better place for our kids and grandkids and future generations, we fucking it up bad. But that's not why I came here today. I came here to tell you about the massacres and the savagery and the killings. So let's go into political campaigns that increased and leaned on rhetoric, rhetoric warnings that such shared governments threaten social stability. So at this particular point, integration into government where Black people and white people held offices in the same government, like I said, was not going to last long. Some people feel like that particular type of construct threatened the social stability, right? Because there was a hierarchy. It was white people, and then Black people were beneath us, because you remember the 3/4 of a human thing, right? But now it's equal. And then 1898, I think right about that time is where separate but equal comes up. You get it? We could be separate, but we can't be equal. But in 1921, back to Tulsa, if you wanted to be separate but equal, there was an economic windfall flowing through Tulsa, Oklahoma. And that was not, we want you to be separate. We just don't want you to be separate when it comes to money. We don't want you at the country clubs and all of that, but we don't want you to keep that money away from us and grow economically, because eventually you don't need the resources that we have, or what we're telling you that we can provide for you better than you can. You feel me? Sharecropping came into that too, but we don't want that. So newspapers amplified these messages, saying government that is integrated and desegregated was going to cause social instability. So the newspaper put their messages out just like the TV and the news do now, and they shaped public perception long before a confrontation materialized. Beneath the surface, organization was underway. So they were organizing in private, right, to destroy a city, because this is what this is about. The government was getting ready to tear down the government, reset the government, man. So alliance foreign strategies were discussed, like a military alliance. Military strategies were discussed, and then tensions quietly accumulated. But then in November of 1898, those tensions broke into the open. Now hear this: armed groups moved through the city with coordination rather than spontaneity. A Black-owned newspaper known for its assertive editorial voice was burnt down. Elected officials were confronted and compelled to resign on the threat of death. And leadership changed hands not through ballots, but through intimidation. Don't that sound like something that just stick? It sounds like that's what goes on now. The pattern is the same, is what I'm trying to say. And I didn't even know that. I wanted to come over here and tell y'all about the massacres, and then I'm caught up in the patterns. And I'm caught up in what I see that keeps repeating itself as people make the joke and the analogy that history keeps repeating itself. History really does repeat itself. What goes around comes around. As violence spread, many Black residents fled. See, they leaving the city again. Uncertain whether safety could be restored. Families abandoned their homes, their businesses, got shuttered up, and the city's demographic trajectory shifted in ways that would endure for generations. So anytime that you have anytime that you have people that prosper, black people that prosper, and they create infrastructures that prosper, then you have moral. If you have something that's already working, elections and all of that, you have people that their job is to come in and destroy the foundation of democracy and these infrastructures for the land and the resources on the land. So historians now widely recognize Wilmington as the only successful coup in the United States history. A moment when democratic process yield to organized coercion, reminding the nation that governments depends on not only on elections, but on the collective commitment to honor them. So again, why does it happen? Wilmington was not spontaneous. It was strategic. Fear of black political influence and shared governments, coordinated propaganda to justify takeover, militant organization prepared to act, and intentional dismantling of a democracy to restore a hierarchy. Democracy has elections and officials. A hierarchy has a king. Again, democracy, elections, president, hierarchy, king, princes, elites. You get it? And I want you to remember, democracy is strongest not when it's declared, but when it's defended. And that's why we have the United States Army that we have, because originally standing on the principle of going to defend the Constitution, the United States Army defended a democracy. Now it starts to look like vigilante justice. So, and I have a 1919 Elaine massacre. I have a Ocoee massacre. And I have a Chicago summer. I'm going to try to get at least 2. But I want to skip over number 5 because I want to do something that's close to home. And I mean, you have to forgive me. I overexert myself sometimes. I get excited about this information and I get to digging into it. And some of this stuff gets to be real big for me. But I want to take you to Ocoee, Florida in the 1920s. And this is about elections and votes. And the purpose of this particular segment about the Ocoee massacre in 1920s was centered around and set up to center the ballot as a battleground. Political participation triggering backlash. So on election day, and election day has long been framed as one of democracy's clearest expressions. A moment when individual voices help shape collective direction. But in November of 1920, in the small central Florida town of Ocoee, the act of attempting to vote became the center of a conflict that would permanently alter the community's trajectory. In the early 20th century was a period of intense political recalibration across the United States. Expanding participation meant shifting their influence, and in many places that shift generated unease. Conversations about voting were rarely just procedural. They carried implications about who would hold power and whose priorities would guide the future. Same thing that happens now. In Ocoee, tensions had been quietly building when confrontation finally emerged. It did so with startling speed. Disputes escalated into armed clashes. They shooting at each other. They trying to kill each other. And the stillness typically associated with small town life gave way to chaos. Gunfire echoed through neighborhoods. Again, homes were set ablaze, their light cutting through the darkness as families fled to search for safety. They running people out of their cities. Some escaped under cover of night, leaving behind property, possession, and the familiarity of the streets. They had long call home. Others sought refuge with relatives miles away, uncertain whether they were going to be able to return. Rosewood, Tulsa, they running in, they causing havoc, they running people out of their fucking towns, and then they taking the town over. You feel me? By the time the violence subsided, the demographic landscape of Ocoee had shifted dramatically. In the decades that followed, the town remained overwhelmingly white. Overwhelmingly white. A quiet but unmistakable indicator that the events of that single day had reshaped not only memory, but geography itself. For many years, public discussions remained limited. Yet, as historians revisited the episode, a broader undertaking and understanding began to emerge. This was not simply a moment of unrest. It was the turning point that revealed how access to civic participation could become a flashpoint when broader anxieties converge. Ocoee reminds us that democracy is not sustained by ideals alone. It depends on the consistent protection of those who choose to execute. Closing. Ocoee is shaped by voter intimidation. Voter intimidation intended to influence political outcomes, fear of electoral change, altering local power, weak protective intervention during escalating conflict, and social tensions surrounding expanding civic participations. My take on it, the strength of democracy is measured not just by the right to vote, but by the safety of those who attempt to use it. All right. I was going to try to get the other ones, man, but I can't. So here. Across different states, across different decades, under different circumstances, these events were not identical. I disagree with. Yet together they formed a historical landscape that asks something more of us than memory alone. They ask for understanding. History is not only a record of what occurred, it is also a reflection of what societies choose to emphasize and what they struggle to confront. Remembering is not about dwelling in the past. It's about widening the lens through which we see the present. History rarely asks us for comfort. It asks us for honesty. The stories explored tonight are not easy chapters, but they are a part of the American narrative. Because a future built with awareness stands stronger than one built on silence. Once again, man, y'all know I love you. I see what you're doing. Podcast@gmail.com anytime, especially at 5 o'clock here on this show is where I'll be every Thursday. And so the next time I see you, man, just remember, I see what you're doing, and I'm out. You still here, man? Y'all go ahead and find something else. Or go research some history.
www.enter-effect.com for more info, beats, and designs. Beats available for $30 and exclusive starting at $150.
Make them next move. Shawty, I'm with your girl like you might do. And we can all go.
Hey man, I'm going in there on this one here, man. CBR the team.